talk about PA able today and what exactly that is and why it's important to your participants out there. So what PA able is, it is a savings program for people with disabilities, and that disability ranges from um, social anxiety to physical limitations, and as well as intellectual disabilities and autism. So it's a very wide range of disabilities, and it's actually self-certified. So like if one of them could be a social anxiety, you can apply online and open the account and then later get a physician's note. And that's really all there is to it as far as qualifications to be. Like I said, our treasurer here is a key component to the ABLE program, both in Pennsylvania and nationally. So she has a little video here. Again, we're not sure if this will translate into Zoom, if it'll play, but we're going to try it anyways. It's only about a minute long. She likes to do an introduction. Can you see it okay?
We can see it, but we can't hear it.
No volume. All right. So.
Or at least I can't hear it.
But it's showing the words, right?
Yes.
All right. Well, I know you couldn't hear her, but hopefully you're able to read her closed captions as it went along. And as you saw that, we're always looking for organizations to help get this word out there. Really, what that means is we want to empower you, make you the hero of that story for these individuals. Okay. So you may have heard some things like what ABLE actually stands for is achieving better life experience. And that's what the purpose of this is. And you may have also heard that saw that she said 2017 is PA ABLE's. 2014 is when the ABLE program went nationally, and then Pennsylvania adopted their own components to make PA ABLE in 2017. With that said, I do come across a lot of questions when I present this, or even mention PA ABLE. Like, why does a person with a disability need a special savings account? Why do they need something particularly designed for them? And as far as a savings account goes, shouldn't you just be able to go to a bank and open one up? You can, but there are limitations to other government benefits. A lot of people with disabilities rely on other government benefits, and one I'm going to use throughout this presentation is Social Security. It's a very, very common one for someone with a disability. All right, so like I said, this is helping people achieve a better life experience, and as we go along, we're going to find out why and also how. All right, first of all, like I said, most people with disabilities do count on other government benefits, and the first bullet point here says funds and PA ABLE accounts don't count against the eligibility for any federal means tested benefits, including Social Security. As far as PAA, they don't affect the PA health, disability, or student financial aid benefits. Mostly because any sort of income is counted towards that, and you can only have a certain income level and a savings asset level before those programs are no longer offered to you. But with PA able, we are able to put money in that account and not count it towards those means tested benefits. So real quick, the able also has PA able also has big tax advantages for Pennsylvanians with disabilities. Before that, Social Security is the example I use a lot, and you can only save up to $2,000 on the Social Security program. But with PA able, you can actually put in $18,000 per year or $100,000 total before impacting that disability benefit. This bar graph over here, real quick, you can see a life before able, your savings account before able, what you can have before that gets impacted heavily. And that bar at the bottom is barely visible. We actually made it thicker so you can actually see it. But that's a $2,000 range. So, but the other one is on the right is the $100,000, and as you can see, that obviously would be a big step for anybody, and that's not an easy metric to hit for really anybody. So with this program, we're able to achieve that traditional experience. So with that in mind, we'll go on to the next one real quick. Another big thing that I like about the PA able program is its simplicity. There are other things out there in the world that do help protect benefits and help people with disabilities save money without impacting those benefits, but they're super complicated. Another one that I'll use for an example is a special needs trust. Super complicated, achieves similar stuff, but super complicated. Typically requires lawyers to help set up, require lawyers to help withdraw. And it's a useful tool for the right people, but it is very complicated. The ABLE program, however, is very simple. You'll find out that it works very much like a traditional savings program, savings account like any other bank, as well as some of the things it offers, such as a checking account too. Very easy to access and use. Again, PA Able helps your assets grow. Without it, you are limited to $2,000 savings before Social Security is jeopardized, severely jeopardized. All right. And this also includes other benefits or other government tested benefits, such as student financial aid. And a benefit to have in this account. Now, we mentioned tax advantages before, but for PA Able, your PA, nothing grown on this account. So accounts grow like a savings account is supposed to grow. It's invested and that has growth, and none of that is taxed at the PA as a PA income. Real quick, I do want to mention that contributors can deduct that money that they're putting into a loved one's account up to $18,000 as well. So if you have a loved one that you're going to help support, you put the money into the ABLE account for them, you can deduct that from your Pennsylvania income tax. So I mentioned quick in the beginning the eligibility for this account. Who qualifies for this? Then there's actually two things that we need. One, the age, the onset of the disability and what age that was. Right now, as I speak, it's 26 years old. The onset of disability had to occur prior to your 26th birthday. An example would be possibly I'm going to use a car accident as an example of what this means. So let's say you're 24, 25 years old and you're in a vehicle accident, but you're able to walk away. You sustain some injuries, but you're able to walk away. Later in life, maybe that injury, maybe it's to your hip, leg, or something, starts to flare up a little bit, starts to really hinder your ability to work or live day to day normally. So, but the onset of the injury, even though you may be later in life, maybe in your 40s, the onset of the accident was prior to 26, as in your 24, 25 year. So you would be eligible. Okay. Another example is a misdiagnosis. Maybe most of your life you've had this lingering effect, and doctors have not quite nailed down what it was or misdiagnosed what it was, and it never went away. Now later in life, it's really hindering your life, your ability to work. Well, so you need traditional government benefits. So that misdiagnosis would also count as an onset time frame. So just to help clarify what that means. The other part that we need besides the onset of the disability being prior to 26, which by the way raises to 46. which is going to help a lot of individuals, especially our veterans. So it's going to help a lot more individuals here, but that won't go into effect in 2026. Okay. But it did pass, checked all the boxes and has passed all the legislation that it needs to. That just goes into effect 2026. But in combination with that, also need to be, if you also need the right qualifying disability to help know what that means. Well, if you are on Social Security, automatically you qualify, automatically. Other than that, you can self-certify with a physician's documentation later on. Like I mentioned earlier, you can go online right now and open an account with a self-certification, but you will require, a physician's documentation later on. All right. And by the way, you're welcome to ask any questions in the middle of this. Just unmute yourself and say, "Hey, I have a question," and I'll be happy to help you out while we're in the throes of that part of the question, so you don't forget it. All right. So don't be shy. All right. Like I said, one of my favorite aspects to this stuff is that it's easy, including easy to open. I always recommend going online, paable.gov. There's a few questions. It only takes 15 minutes, maximum 15 minutes. Right off the bat, it's going to give you a small checklist of things to have on hand: birth certificate, some basic information of your disability, just answer a few demographic and disability questions, and you're ready to go. You get to choose your investment. There are 6 plans, including one is a checking option. The checking option is very basic because you get checks, debit cards, just like any other checking account. And it's right now it's administered through Fifth Third Bank. So if you need a brick and mortar building to go to, Fifth Third is available. And again, if you have any questions, there's a number right there. You can call or visit the website. Also has a lot of good frequently asked questions that can help you out. But the phone number is always there and available. And if you have trouble with that, Pennsylvania also offers a 529, and that has a phone number which reaches the same helpline too. So if you want to use that one as well, it goes right to a human being. Again, like I said, it's easy to open, it's easy to use. I mentioned the Fifth Third checking option where you get a debit card. Same way you use any other debit card. Direct deposits from your Social Security also available. And if you have any questions, are you using this right? Because it is designed for people with disabilities and used for disability stuff. But if you have any questions, we always tell you to save your receipts. But for the most part, it's anything typically used in a life form. It can be used for rent checks, medical bills, utility bills, all that stuff that you would typically use. It just doesn't cover things like alcohol and tobacco, gambling, anything of that nature. So like I said, you can use it for so much: your housing, your basic living stuff, your food, education, and of course, healthcare and transportation. And prior to that, like I said, you can only save $2,000. And if you need to save for like a specialized van, basically it's impossible prior to the ABLE program coming into existence. So like I said, it's easy to use, easy to open. We encourage you to just hop online, read through some of it if you have any concerns, and get it open as soon as you can, because you can start saving immediately. And that's, like I said, that's a big deal for folks with disabilities that are limited to the money thresholds that their benefit is keeping them down to. 10 years ago when this thing, or 11 years ago when this thing didn't exist, you had folks, spending down constantly, or hiding, or converting it into cash and having to hide it, or give it to parents to hold. It wasn't, the bureaucracy certainly got in the way of trying to live a traditional life while having a benefit or while having a disability. The benefits that the benefit programs that are offered to folks with disability is not designed to have a life-saving income. It's designed to offset that financial burden that comes with a disability. And if you can't, have that benefit and live a traditional life, it really holds the community down. So that's where you as clinicians come into play. We really count on folks that support these folks to help get this program at least in their ear, so they at least know about it. Give them the resources that they need to educate themselves if it's right for them. Like I said, it does have tax advantages, which is nice, but the biggest reason the ABLE program exists is to help them be allowed to save and keep this government benefit that helps them offset that financial burden that comes with that disability. So right now is a good chance for any questions that anybody might have regarding the program or how I can help you be a part of the spreading the word for this program and reaching folks that you know who could use it. And I think most people are automatically on mute, so check yourself for to unmute it.
Anyone have any questions?
No questions. Means I nailed it, right?
I mean, it's really incredible resource. I can imagine that the biggest thing that we would run into is people just needing a lot of support with how to set this all up.
Yeah, and I guess the range of disabilities goes from mental to physical. I know you guys study a lot of folks that have depression or any of that. That all qualifies. I do presentations for a suicide group down in Washington. Those are all qualify. They may not be on a government benefit like Social Security because of that disability, but they still qualify and they can take advantage of that tax benefit. And you never know, maybe they're in the midst of putting together a Social Security application and it might come through. They'll have at least have this ready to go and it won't be counted against them. So I've typically coming into the city, I get hung up in traffic and I get very frustrated and I get a lot of time to think when you're sitting there on Green Tree Hill, not going anywhere, right? And I get to think, very frustrated right now, but I get to go in about 30 minutes, it's going to pass. And I get to go present this program and enjoy the work that I do. So 30 minutes is my frustration level. But people with disability where they can't save past $2,000, but they want to work. I mean, that frustration goes nowhere. So that stays with them. At 30 minutes, mine's done. Theirs, however, is a lifetime situation. So the ABLE program, it's just really helpful for those folks that it's an escape, around that burden. So we really try to get this out there. I work very closely with folks like with the Special Olympics. Actually, I'm going to go see Andrew tomorrow. They're gonna launch the first national softball championship for Special Olympics, and that's going to be held here in Pittsburgh up at the no off season place just out in Trafford. So I'll go meet up with them and see how they're doing and try to make sure everyone's aware of the PA ABLE program. Andrew's been a big supporter of us, so very, very grateful for that.